Activists protesting in favor of a ceasefire in Gaza took to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda yesterday, where they demonstrated against Israel's ongoing military operations there. Police confirmed dozens of protesters were arrested after they refused to leave. Yesterday overseas, Al Jazeera cameras caught the harrowing moment that an airstrike landed near a Kuwaiti hospital in southern Gaza. Let's watch.
As we're getting into Yes, sir. Oh my God! Did you hear that?
Yes, we did.
Oh my God! Oh, that's the hospital. That's the hospital. That's the hospital. Oh my God!
According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, almost 20,000 Palestinian civilians have now been killed by Israeli military operations since October 7th. Meanwhile, this week, Democratic Senator John Fetterman took a page from Nikki Haley's playbook and blamed TikTok for young people's lack of support for Israel. Here he is on CNN.
72% of young voters, according to this new poll, disapprove of how President Biden is handling the Israel-Hamas war. You've been very vocal in your full support for Israel. I see the Israeli flag behind you in your office there. You've been very clearly arguing that Hamas bears responsibility for the tragedy of what's going on in Gaza. Why do you think so many younger people, especially in your party, see it differently?
I really don't know. I do know that a lot of people are getting their perspective from TikTok. And I think if you're kind of getting your perspective on the world on TikTok, it's going to tend to be kind of warped or not reflective of the history and actually the way things absolutely are. And what is very clear is that Hamas started this, and they actually broke the ceasefire, and they attacked and murdered babies, children, women, attacked a music concert and everything. It's outrageous.
So the specific accusation against TikTok that some people, including some people on the right, have alleged is the algorithm is being manipulated by the Chinese government to favor pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli narratives. I guess Fetterman doesn't quite say that he buys into that there. He says that, and I think this is frankly true, young people are much more anti-Israel. As far as I can tell, it's a genuine sentiment. It's not being manipulated to achieve. That's just the politics of the youngest generation, and TikTok is a preferred news source, communications source for many of them. I've said I wouldn't put it past the Chinese government to manipulate the algorithm in some way, given that our own government has tried to assert control of the narrative on all the social media companies under its purview. Wouldn't surprise me if the Chinese did the same. But I think it's not helpful to blame the tool, to blame a platform for the views of people. That's just like, on some levels, that's going back to 2016 style Hillary Clinton-esque. I would have won if not for those confused people on Facebook. Oh no, sorry, you got to make your case.
Yeah, it is kind of surreal to hear Fetterman say that back to back to the video we just watched of the bombing that happened live on air that the journalist was covering in Gaza, and in the wake of reporting of 20,000 innocents now killed in Gaza. It's a population of 2.3 million people. You're in a situation where entire families are being wiped out. Everybody knows people who have experienced loss, not to mention that there are over 50,000 people who have been injured, and we're seeing them being treated in the most brutal of circumstances. With the medical blockade proceeding, there's been reporting of obstruction of the limited aid that is being brought into Gaza, being obstructed from getting to the needed recipients. You see children and adults alike being subject to amputations without any anesthesia. There is a food and water crisis. Starvation is the next tool of destruction in the region. You're seeing all of this play out on every social media platform, even the mainstream media occasionally. And to make the assessment that the reason people are bristling at this conflict and calling for a ceasefire and saying that Israel is acting in excess, regardless of how passionately and compassionately you feel for the lives lost on October 7th, to attribute that to Chinese interference when the Occam's razor of it all is that people don't like to see dead, bloody, beheaded, disemboweled children on their timeline, I think is painfully out of touch.
Sure, I think the unprecedented level of public that we're able to witness what's going on in this conflict in almost real time, being flooded with images of people, innocent people dying, being blown apart, certainly is part of that sentiment. I mean, I think it's horrible to watch, and I wish very much that an end to the violence could be agreed to as soon as possible. I don't enjoy watching it.
The other frustrating aspect of this most recent Fetterman statement, it's similar to what we were talking about earlier in the week, where he seems to have taken one position at one time when it was convenient, and now he's flip-flopping. So it used to be he's all about the kids, listen to the kids are right, and now we're in the realm of this Bart Simpson meme where, it's the Principal Skinner asking, is it me? Am I the problem? No, it's the kids who are wrong. So when he was surging in his congressional campaign and was going viral semi-regularly with dunks on Dr. Oz, talking about he's not pronouncing Wegmans right, or he can't pronounce crudité because I'm a real American and Dr. Oz is a highfalutin ninny. He was lauding his social media successes. There was an article around this time last year, almost exactly a year ago, December 17th, 2022, called John Fetterman's TikTok Whisperer, about how much he benefited from young people on social media boosting his campaign in these viral moments. And now he's very quick to turn around and say, well, the reason that the kids are wrong is the very media platform that helped me even be a political quantity right now. And that, frankly, came to his defense when he was at a low point on the wake of his stroke. So there's only so much you can say about someone who would be so willing to manipulate the factual record in an advantageous way instead of reckoning with what is going on in front of him. He doesn't have to agree with the kids, but to dismiss the, I think, solidly held feelings of his own constituents and to not demonstrate any kind of intellectual curiosity there in that clip as to why they believe what they believe. If you were to ask me what Zionists believe and why I think that they hold the beliefs that they do, I can give you a reason, and it has some compassion in it. I've spoken to too many Jewish Americans who have now changed their minds, who used to be Zionists, who talk really compellingly about the extent to which they were told certain narratives and information growing up, whether it was in Hebrew school or just generally socially, the inducement of right to return and taking the Israel trips in their youth and how that informed their perspective. There are historians that are happy to weigh in on the diverse opinions among the Jewish community on the history of Zionism. There's so much information out there, and you can engage with why people substantively feel the way that they feel, but not even acknowledge that there's an incredible amount of carnage that's been happening since October 7th, to continue to allude to the tragedy of October 7th without even taking a breath to acknowledge the 20,000 souls that have died since then. It's out of touch.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe he's turned off by the amount of sympathy and endorsement for what happened on October 7th by young activists who are not his constituents, by the way. You're just talking about young people on TikTok. I mean, some young people.
No, I'm talking about young people in Pennsylvania who helped him get elected, who knocked doors for him, who made these videos for him and helped him to go viral.
And then he found out that they support the actions of Hamas, and he can't stand with them anymore.
So your argument, Robby, is that because somebody somewhere on a university campus that is not in the state,
somewhere.
What was the poll that we pulled up? Was it 70-odd%, 72% was it, percent of young people disagree with Joe Biden's handling of the siege on Gaza? Okay. Whatever the overwhelming number was, those are not, the majority of young people aren't a member, don't go to college, much less are members of a pro-Palestinian group that issued a statement that you want to attribute to every American in the world. But even if that were true, your argument today,
Rob, it to the left.
But even if that were true, even if every single person who is critical of Biden's conduct here signed that Palestine statement, your argument is that John Fetterman should not be sympathetic to 20,000 innocent Palestinians
No, you're putting
being
words in my mouth.
killed.
When did I say that?
So what is the argument here? My argument is that he should have sympathy as an elected official who's a senator of the United States of America to the reason that people are so upset about Joe Biden's conduct and Israel's conduct in the Middle East is because 20,000 innocent people have been killed. At the end of the day, either you care about that or you don't.
I think it's totally unfair to say he doesn't care about that. He cares about it, and he substantially blames Hamas for the terrorist attack that has resulted in the thousands of deaths of their own side, of their own people, as this group is rooted out by the Israelis.
Well, we've seen where this logic goes, and everyone's been very clear. If Israel murders every last man, woman, and child in Gaza, all 2.3 million people, if they were to drop a nuclear bomb, as some Israeli officials have advocated them doing, on Gaza, it would be completely justified because 1,000 people were horribly killed on October 7th. If that's your position, that's your position. It's up to the public to weigh on the morality of that.
The U.S. dropped a nuclear bomb on a country that attacked us, and we said surrender, and they said no. And then we dropped another one, and we said surrender, and then they surrendered.
And subsequently,
and then they surrendered.
And subsequently, we came up with the UN, and as an acknowledgement that the way that World War II was handled, the bombing of Dresden, the dropping of the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima and
the elimination
Nagasaki
of the Nazi regime in Imperial Japan was wrongly handled?
Was morally wrong. That is exactly why we came up with the League of Nations and the United Nations in the wake of World War II, to better manage international disputes in a way that would have less of a cost to civilian tragedies. It's very telling that when people try to defend what Israel is doing in Palestine, people like RFK Jr., they reference wars and civilian casualties that happened in a previous dark age of international politics before we came up with the systems, rules, and laws that have now been implemented to try to improve upon the barbarity that we saw in the first part of the last century.
What we hope for this system is that it prevents the rise of something like the Nazis, not that it would constrain us from defeating them in some theoretical battle. Well, what good is international law then?
I don't know what you're talking about with Nazis. I know that 20,000 Palestinians who've been slaughtered by the IDF in the last 2 months are not Nazis. 75% of those killed are women and children. And Israel and America have that blood on their hands. So the question is whether or not the Democratic Party and John Fetterman are going to listen to the overwhelming majority of voters, including 49% of Republicans and a majority of independents, who want there to be a ceasefire in Gaza because they say enough is enough, that nothing in the world justifies murdering 20,000 innocent people. And you say I have no proof that John Fetterman cares about that. I have heard no words out of his mouth even referencing the 20,000 people died. So I think that if between the two of us jumping to conclusions about how he feels about that loss of life, I think it is very much incumbent on him to articulate that concern and not for us to project it onto him.
If a ceasefire, I also want a ceasefire in that I want all violence, I want all hostility between the Israelis and the Palestinian people to end. I want it to end immediately, and then I want the Palestinians to have equal rights and political opportunity and what they deserve, and I want the Israelis to be safe from them and vice versa. That's what I want. So I would say I support a ceasefire.
Robby,
but in reality, that's not going to happen until the terrorist force is defeated.
With all due respect, this isn't a conversation about what you want. This is a question about John Fetterman and a conversation about John Fetterman and what the Democratic Party's actions are here. John Fetterman has never articulated a desire for the end of the violence, which includes the occupation of Gaza, of the people who live there who are overwhelmingly refugees from the 1948 Nakba, where 700,000 Palestinians were forcibly removed and ethnically cleansed from their lands in what is now Israel and forced to live in Gaza. These are the children and grandchildren and survivors of that initial event. So, yes, you can sit here and say everything that you want to say, but what we know is that while Joe Biden is saying, I ostensibly support a two-state solution, Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, I absolutely reject a two-state solution. There will never be Palestinian independence. I don't know how many times he has to say it, how many times his spokespeople have to say it before we start living in the realm of reality. God bless your hopes and dreams. I get what you want in the abstract, but the reality is there going to be political pressure on politicians who are acting in a way that would thwart that outcome, because that's what the United States has been doing, and that's what Israel has been doing for the last 75 years.
Well, as I say, every time we discuss this, no, I would cut off all the funding today. Yesterday was the best time to stop funding the Israelis. We don't need to pay for it. That's fine. We don't disagree on that.
All right. Well, stick around. We'll have more Rising for you right after this.